Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man's Court Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Nighttime Spooks video for you guys, and this was titled Three True Road Trip Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off again, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road into the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
Two summers ago, I was on a cross-country road trip with my wife.
Okay.
We were going to visit relatives for a big family gathering. We chose to drive because we could make several stops along the way of cities that we liked. Plus, we had some extra time. The first day, we drove a good 8 or 9 hours and then stopped in for the evening. On the second day, we wanted to make it a little bit farther, so we drove a little later into the night. We got off the freeway at about 11 p.m. and went onto a highway. The highway had woods on both sides of it and was pretty quiet at this time. We only saw a couple of other cars on the road. About 10 minutes into being on that road, we saw what appeared to be a man standing in the middle of the road, waving his arms.
First of all, it's kind of nice driving on the road where there's hardly any cars behind you or coming from the opposite direction, because you know you can just keep traveling without worrying about nobody honking the horn at you for being too slow. But if you see a man in the middle of the road waving their hands, sometimes that will mean, like, yes, they are in need of assistance. They got into a wreck or they pulled over because one of their friends or family members is having a medical emergency, or it's a trap to make you stop so they could get you out of the vehicle and rob you, probably. I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead, so let's just continue and see what happens.
I slammed on my brakes to slow down. When we got closer, we could see that it was an older-looking man who appeared to be in his 70s. He looked like he was in trouble, and we stopped the car. The old man came up to my driver's window, and I rolled it down just a crack. He seemed genuinely concerned. He said that his car ran out of gas a ways back off a side road, and he was walking to try to get back to his house. He asked if we could drive him to his house, and said it was just a couple miles away. My instant reaction, of course, was to say no, and I really wished that I did. But the old man seemed so harmless, so I figured why not help the guy out. I told him to get in the back and I would give him a ride. He got into the back seat of my car and said thank you to us several times. Then he told us his house was just up the road and he had some gas he could take to his car in his other truck. He directed us to his house. We drove up the road about a mile, then took an exit to a very quiet road surrounded by dense woods on both sides.
Yeah, I'm getting that feeling you should have not picked up that old man. He probably walked out there on that road just to see if anybody would stop for him and lure him to a spot where he could rob him or murder him and take the car. You never know.
We continued down this road for a minute or so when the man told us to turn at what appeared to be a driveway. I pulled into it and asked the man if this was his driveway. He said yes, but then asked if we could drive farther up. It was a skinny driveway that winded around, and I could not see very far in front because of all the trees. I kept driving down the skinny drive. I started to get a bad feeling. Then the skinny road turned into a clearing. The man said this was fine and we could drop him off here. Then he got out of my car. But as soon as he got out, I saw movement coming from the woods behind my car. Then I turned and saw more movement in the front. I didn't hesitate at all, and I stomped on the gas and put my car in reverse, not even knowing what it was. My wife then started to scream. I looked and saw multiple men running at my car from two different directions.
I knew it. It was a trap all along. That guy lured you out to that spot just so his friends would ambush the car. But luckily you saw him moving and your brain kicked to tell you to put your car in reverse and drive out of there quick, because you definitely don't want to be grabbed out of your own vehicle and assaulted.
I backed out the skinny driveway as fast as I could. A man hit the side of my car with something. I don't even know what. I got out of the driveway and back onto the road and sped off to the highway. My wife was shaking, and I have to admit that I was too. I don't know what kind of trap that old man was trying to lure us into, but I know I'm never stopping to pick anyone up again.
There you go. Yeah, you just can't trust either hitchhikers or just people waving their hands like they're in need of assistance nowadays, because you never know if they'll lure you to a spot where you can't get nobody else to help you. Thank God his instincts kicked in and he got the crap out of there and saved him and his wife from getting attacked. But anyway, let's get to story number 2.
I was taking a long road trip last year for work. I do a lot of traveling for my job, but I will spare you the details of work and get to my story.
Good.
I left the city I was staying in at about 4 p.m., and I knew it would be a late night of driving, and I probably wouldn't arrive to my hotel until around 2 in the morning.
You see, I wouldn't mind hearing all the details of what he does for work, but I'm glad he said he spared the details because I probably would have got bored.
I drove for hours and hours. The roads were pretty crowded when I started, and by the end of my drive, they were very quiet. It got to be around 1 in the morning, and I was about an hour and a half from my destination. The roads were very clear, so that was nice, and I was feeling pretty good. I was kind of in the middle of nowhere at this point, and as I drove along, I noticed a car come into my rearview mirror. It seemed to be going pretty fast. I was in the right lane already, so I expected it to blow past me. It reached my car and then slowed down so it was going around the same speed as me. I looked over to see. It was an old beat-up car that appeared to be about 20 years old and had some duct tape over one of the windows. But when I looked at the driver, I saw that he was wearing a skeleton mask. He looked at me for a good second, and then he turned and sped forward. I shook my head and kept driving.
Holy crap. That would scare the crap out of me for sure. Seeing a guy wearing a skeleton mask driving an old beat up car, that's not good to see on the road. I hope this person knows what to do and getting away from this person altogether.
He went past me and then turned into my lane in front of me and drove about 5 car lengths ahead of my car, but maintained that same speed. When I looked in my mirror again, I saw more cars approaching. They too were going pretty fast. They reached my car and the first one began to pass me. I glanced over to see that this man was also wearing a skeleton mask. He passed me and drove side by side with the car ahead of me. The next car pulled forward and then another. Every driver of these cars were wearing skeleton masks.
Oh man, I think that they must be part of some sort of cult or just a gang that like to scare people with skeleton masks on. At this point, I'll be like, okay, something's fishy. I'll be pulling out my phone, calling 911 and telling them what I'm seeing and asking what should I do. Because no normal, sane person will be driving on the road wearing a mask unless they were going to a costume party. But I don't think that's where these guys are going.
I looked behind me and saw even more cars. By now, I was completely surrounded by these skeleton masked drivers. I started to get really creeped out, and I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't know what was going on and if these people were trying to run me off the road or something. I kept driving, and before long, the cars seemed to get closer to me. I knew I would have to do something, and I was hoping that an exit would come up. About a mile later, I was happy to see an exit finally come. I maintained my speed with the cars closing in on me, and at the last second, I swerved onto the exit ramp from the freeway. The 2 cars in front of me and the one next to me were unable to make the exit, so it was just me and a bunch of cars following me now. I took a right and frantically looked around at where I should drive. There was about 5 cars trailing me. I drove down the road, and one of the cars behind me started to speed up to pass. We passed a restaurant and another business, but then I saw a gas station, and to my surprise, I happened to notice a police car parked at it. I quickly swerved over and entered the station and drove my car right next to the police and parked. A few of the cars pulled in and then drove through the gas station and left. I waited for the officer to return to his car from the convenience store, and when he did, I told him about my situation. He said he would alert the other police in the area and even offered to drive a few miles behind me on the freeway to make sure I wouldn't get followed again. That is exactly what we did, and I was able to make it safely to my hotel about an hour later.
Thank God the officer was understanding and offered to follow him to his hotel. But that shows that when he turned off the exit and the other guys in front of him couldn't do the same thing, but the others in the back turned off, they were definitely tailing him, probably trying to pull him over, rob him, or kidnap him. You never know. But thankfully, when he saw that cop car, he turned in the gas station to meet up with him. They just drove on right by and said, forget him. But luckily, that cop said he was going to alert the other officers about them. And hopefully they were caught, because it'd be kind of scary to go on the road and they're still out there doing that same scare tactic on other drivers. Yeah, that would be a scary sight to see while on a long road trip for sure.
A few years ago, I was on a cross-country road trip because I was moving from one side of the country to the other. It was just me all by myself, and I enjoyed being able to live out of my car for a while. The only problem was that I had an old car that was on its last legs. I was planning to purchase a new car and get rid of the old one, but I decided to wait until after I moved because of all the hassle. The car would occasionally die, but for the first part of the trip, it did great. On the third day, it was really hot, and after driving almost non-stop for about 10 hours, night came and I was driving on the highways. Then I felt my car starting to die. It was about 9 p.m. and the road I was on was very quiet. It was not a major freeway because I was taking what the map told me was a shortcut. Instead, it was a little highway surrounded by mainly woods. I did not want to be stranded here. My car slowed down and came to a stop on the side of the road. I shut it off and waited a few minutes before trying to start it again.
Yeah, I agree with this guy said. If your car's basically on its last life and it keeps on messing up on you, the one place you do not want to break down in is on a stretch of road that's near woods, because you never know if there's people waiting there for people to either break down or pull over for something, and they jump out to attack them.
When I did, nothing happened at all. Then I took out my phone to call for help. But unfortunately, I saw that I had no service. I wasn't sure what to do. I decided to walk out of my car and see if my service would work a little ways up the road. I walked about 20 feet up the road looking at my phone to see if I would receive any bars. Just then, I heard a noise come from the woods. I thought it was probably a deer, but when I looked, I didn't see a deer. Instead, I saw legs of a man. I couldn't see the rest of him from the trees. I didn't know why a man would be at the woods at this time. It made me uncomfortable, so I walked back to my car. I got in, shut the door, and locked it. I looked into the woods from my car, but I didn't see anything. I went back to my phone and decided to restart it to see if maybe that would get me some service. It was a long shot, but I needed to try what I could. As my phone was restarting, I heard a noise to the right of my car. I looked, and my heart stopped when I saw a man standing at my passenger's window looking in. He looked dirty and was not wearing a shirt. He started trying to open the door. When it didn't open, he started banging on the window. I sat there for a few seconds, frozen with fear. Finally, I began to yell at him to go away, but it didn't seem to work. I tried my phone to call the police, but it still didn't have any service. Then the man suddenly stopped banging and ran back towards the woods. I saw him grab a large stick and then start to walk back to my car.
Yeah, I wouldn't take none of that guy's crap of him beating the car. I would have been yelling too. And if I had a weapon like a gun or a bat, I would have been going out trying to scare the crap out of him and tell him to go away. But if this guy's not scared and he goes back in the woods and grabs a stick, I'd be like, oh crap, I hope this car starts up and the phone gets some service, just so I could get some help out here.
I was about to get out and run away. I didn't have a plan after that, but I didn't feel safe in my car with that guy banging on it. As soon as I started to open my door, I saw bright headlights of a truck pulling behind me. The truck came to a stop behind my car. I got out and walked to it. It was a large-looking man who was wearing a camel jacket and started to ask if I needed a tow. But in the middle of his sentence, he saw the man with the stick arrive at my car. I told him the man seemed to be insane and was trying to get into my car. The man in the truck then reached under his seat and grabbed a gun and got out and yelled at the man. When the shirtless guy saw the gun, he dropped his stick and put his hands in the air. The man from the truck gave me his phone and told me to call the police. Luckily, he had service on his phone, and we waited until the police showed up. It was a crazy night that I will never forget. The old man got taken away, and my car got towed. I stayed in a nearby town at a hotel that night, and after my car was fixed, I sold it as soon as I got to my new house.
Thank God a man driving a truck pulled up when he did, because if he didn't, that guy probably would have taken the stick and broken the window and got you. I don't know what that guy's problem was, unless he was really lost in the head. But thankfully, the truck driver had cell service, was able to get the cops to come out there and arrest that dude. But also, he had a gun to hold him at gunpoint. But I'm glad that he was able to get his car fixed and sell it, because I would have done the same thing. Get rid of that thing and get something new. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn those post notifications for more Nighttime Spooks content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and that's a wrap. And have a nice day, y'all.